Hi, welcome to Two Non-Doctors. I'm Liz Mealy.
I'm Maria Shahada.
How often do you think you'll sneeze this episode?
Probably about as many times as you mention your book. No.
Okay, let's do it. Oh my God, you're gonna sneeze. I'll mention my book.
I forgot to take my antihistamine, and I think this is a sneezy corner. I was seriously fine all day, which is why I forgot. Because if I'm sneezing, I don't forget. And then as soon as I sit down in this corner where I record, I'm all sneezes. But you know what? There used to be a cat that lived in this room, and maybe it just wasn't. You remember?
You have like
Bluebell.
ghost cats, because they actually like people that are really allergic to cats. Not that I think you are, but people that are really allergic to cats, like walk into a room, there's a cat. Like, you know what I mean? Like they instantly.
Yeah.
So I wonder if.
Yeah, but I bet she left her dander all over my room, because
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
yeah, the vacuums here, they make the noise, but they don't actually suck anything up. So.
They're vacuums pretending to do stuff all in UK.
Yeah. So it could be that. It could just be that I'm picking up on that. I don't know what it is, but I get really
which makes that ad that we saw years ago on the tube, that giant Mealy ad, because there's the vacuum cleaner company with my last name. My
Yeah.
great grandparents, the vacuum cleaners. But remember, it was this huge ad in the tube station, and it just said "Monster Suck," and I'm like, and I remember I posed in front of it because I was like, "That's my family."
Do you think we could get them to sponsor us because of your last name? And plus, I need a vacuum.
I and they're expensive vacuums. These are like $2,000 vacuums. You're like, who has $2,000 for something that isn't fun?
I can't wait to be that.
Dude, I can't wait to be $2,000 vacuum rich. But yeah, they're like high, and all, they're basically an appliance company. So I think they have like, stoves and dishwashers and stuff, but they're high end appliances. I wrote to them. So me and my sister Emily had the Mealy Sisters variety show in Brooklyn and eventually Manhattan. This is over 5 years ago. We did it for like a year and a half. And we were looking for like sponsors or whatever. I reached out to Johnny Cupcakes. He didn't sponsor us, but he gave us a bunch of swag. So we just gave away Johnny Cupcake swags. Yeah, he was really cool. I've always been a really big fan.
Johnny Cupcake himself?
Johnny Cupcake himself. He has a really cool story. He basically has he was in a band, and then he would sell merch that he made from the band in his car, and the merch would sell better than the band did. And then eventually, and his nickname was like Johnny Cupcakes or something. So eventually he just developed a store, like, and everything's cupcake themed. I have a bunch of his shirts, but they're like huge now. They have a bunch of storefronts. They originally used to be online. So he was really cool. I wrote to him. He's just like, hey, here's some stuff. But I wrote to the Mealy people, and they got back to me, and they did show some interest, but because it was just like a live show, I also think all they would have to do is Google me at this point, and they'd be like, no, thank you. Even if feminist expositions didn't take off, just how cursy and not PC I am, I just don't think I could ever have corporate sponsorship.
We have corporate sponsorship like almost every week.
Yeah, but it's like different. These people are right. These are like they sell $2,000 vacuum cleaners. I want to be wrong. I would love for them to sponsor us.
Yeah.
If they didn't listen, I think they would.
Do you know what we're gonna get if we don't ask? Nothing.
Oh, I love this pep talk.
Yeah. What does it cost to send an email? Nothing.
It's a valid point. I just feel like I'm going to send an email and I'm going to be like, Papa.
Let's have like a sort of game between the two of us to see who could get like the most sponsors.
Okay, don't. This sounds like what my dad does. I have a game. Let's see who can pick most of the stuff off the floor as fast as possible.
I'm being really inspired by your dad. But we're like, even when I was like, yeah, but what happens if you don't ask, you get nothing? Like, I feel very much your father right now. But like,
I'm triggered.
We both win when we win. It's incredible.
I know. So we talked about post recording. I'm angry. No. Mother's Day. Did you wish your mom like a happy Mother's Day?
Fuck. No. Yeah, I did. Of course I did.
The UK has a different Mother's Day, which has to be confusing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not confusing because I go, this is UK's Mother's Day. My mom doesn't
but
really
it's
know
like a
about
month.
it.
It's like a month apart. It's not like one of those things where it's like 3 days later. You know how like there's like
It's
Canadian
in
holidays.
March.
Oh, okay, yeah. So then she gets
So
to Mother's Day. Are you cleaning the screen while we're recording? You
there's
are
a huge
crazy right now.
thumbprint. I can't stand it. I can't stand it because it's just this big smudge, and all I see is a smudge. I'm trying to talk to you, and just the smudge is like in my face. Yeah, it's done. It's done. It's okay. It's
Um, yeah, it was. I drove to see my mom for like less than 12 hours, but it was nice. Mike, can I just tell you my favorite part of Mother's Day?
Oh yeah.
So I took my older sister, who has a bunch of kids and is a mom, and I took my mother out for coffee in the morning. My brother-in-law had something planned for my sister, so he's like, "You can have her from 9 to 10:30," and I was like, "Okay." So I pick him up. We go get coffee. We're sitting down. We're talking a little bit, and this woman sits down next to us, looks over, and she's like, Teresa, and Teresa's like, what? And she's like, we do CrossFit together, but like, nobody's done CrossFit in like a year. And she's like, oh my God. Da, da, da. So they start talking. She ends up talking for a while. And then she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. She's like, blah, blah, blah. Happy Mother's Day to you all. And I stand up and I was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the dirty looks that my mom and my sister gave me made me laugh so hard because I just like, I accepted it for all of us as I was like, whatever. My cat is older than all your children. I was like, I have raised a geriatric cat. And I want full credit. But it just
Well,
made me laugh.
you deserve it because you did raise your siblings also, so
Yeah,
you really
yeah,
do
and they
deserve
turned
it.
out okay. But it made
For a 9-year-old having raised them, I'd say they turned out superb.
but it made me laugh so hard because it wasn't like, think of like when somebody says something to you and it's not yours to accept, you just don't. I literally accepted on the behalf of everybody. I was like, thank you so much. It's just a bunch of mothers. I'm so tired. These bags. Oh, these children.
You would do that. I'd be like winning an Oscar, and you're like, "Thanks."
Yeah,
Just
I
accepted on
supported
Ray's
her.
behalf.
I
You
supported
really
her.
did, though. She did. She did. She did.
Give it, Elizabeth. Give it. But it did. It just made me laugh. And then of course I showed my cat. I was like, "Do you want to see my babies?" And then I showed my one cat.
Oh, you're a nightmare.
Oh, I'm a nightmare. I'm a full nightmare. There's a woman that had 5 kids, a woman that had 3 kids, and then just a woman that's like changed a diaper a couple of times in 1994. And
Yeah, you're like Carrie Bradshaw. Like, where's my wedding gifts? Just because I'm not getting married, you can register here, fuckers.
I am that person. I have really come to the conclusion, and I don't mean this in like a sad way, that I've had so many like album tapings and specials that this making people go to something and spend money I've exhausted it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like leave the house, pay for tickets. And like, don't get me wrong, I would like to think my specials and my album recordings are more fun than a wedding. There's alcohol there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to talk to anybody that is like an aunt from 80 years ago. Like, I just feel like they're not as bad, but I've had several weddings in that context that it'd be, at this point, if I got married, people would be like, dude, I've bought you at least 3 toasters. Like, I can't.
Yeah. I know. I agree. But it is a good trade-off. Come to my show, support my specials, buy my shit.
Buy my book
for our Patreon. Yeah.
Should we get into announcements?
Yeah.
Okay. Patrons, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much to everybody that supports us. You guys are amazing. We often read your Patreon comments, but if you don't know, you can get weekly bonuses. We do a weekly bonus that comes out every Tuesday. You can get monthly bonuses that come out at the beginning of the month. You can control our Googles. You can be a Google guest. We just had Khalees as a Patreon guest. We have so many cool Patreons that have become guests of ours, and we got to know you guys better. And then we have stickers. We have everything. So check out our Patreon. Become a patron. I kind of just exchanged those words, and it's never gotten better.
I don't think anyone notices or cares. So like, as long as a P word comes out, no, as long as a Patreon-ish word comes out. And follow us on the socials. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at TuneOnDoctors, number 2, full word doctors. And on Instagram, because someone took Tune On Doctors, we are Tune On DRS. Not bitter, not at all. And if you have time, leave us a rating and review. If you like the podcast and you want to help us get seen, help us feel great about ourselves. And we do post them and we get really excited. So if you have a minute, get on Apple Podcasts, give us a rate and review.
I just found out my Brooklyn show is sold out, my 9 p.m. Brooklyn show. So we just added a second.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So the 9 p.m. sold out, but we just added a 6:30. So June 5th, 6:30. There's now tickets available. If you did not get them, then Arlington, me and Maria are together, Arlington, Virginia. And then I'm going to be in Cleveland, Detroit, Oklahoma City, Fort Worth, Dallas. It will be in Austin. I'm just not allowed to talk about it yet. Houston, Kansas City, and St. Louis. Most of the ticket links are up on my website. Some of the ones that are in the fall, I'm still adding.
Night Bus is sold out. We do a show in Wood Green. It used to be on a bus. And so somebody wrote to me and they're like, okay, but it seats like 7 anyway. I was like, no, it's out in the courtyard now. So it's like 10. Okay. But it's sold out.
Fuck off. Night Bus is an awesome show. I like anybody in the UK, highly recommend it. Just solid, fun vibes.
It is a fun show. And the audience is always, and like you're on a bus. There's board games.
Yeah. It's just, I feel loose and like I can be silly in myself there.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so you can't come to that, but I do have a lot of other London dates.
Isn't it monthly?
And, it is, but we haven't planned June yet. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, are we going to be on the bus or continue doing out in the courtyard, or if they even want us to come back,
Okay.
Bunch of other London dates.
Really you just made it sound really dramatic where you're just like, I don't know if we're going to be on the bus or off the bus. There's so many things we have to work out.
So many things. Bunch of other London dates. And then I'm going to be in Glasgow, Oxford, Nottingham, Birmingham, all the hymns, and not all of them, just a few. And Oxford, did I say that? Who knows? Yeah. Just my website has all the dates. mariashahada.com.
Woo! Fam now?
Oh shit, I meant to mute that. Yes.
Movie magic. Fan mail. Okay. Oh, so our fan mail is from Gary, who left it. Like, if you listen to our podcast audibly, he left us a voice memo. On
you can do that on Anchor. Yeah.
On Anchor. So if you guys want to, maybe typing's hard for you, maybe you're dyslexic like me, and you want to leave a voice memo, you can absolutely do that at anchor.fm. And then I think it's /2non-doctors. So that's what Gary did. He left us a message about CBD, and we're going to play that.
Hi, this is Maria. It's Gary from Toronto. I just wanted to call in about the CBD experimenting. I tried marijuana-derived CBD and hemp-derived CBD oil and found that the prescription marijuana-derived CBD oil worked a lot better. And I only needed a low dose of it, so it didn't make me drowsy. Maria, you said also you had problems with that. If it's really helped with the anxiety, it takes away the cyclical thinking, which was a big problem for me, thinking about the same issues like all day, and it's ruining taking away my chances to relax. So I'd recommend you maybe try that if you have accessibility to prescribed marijuana-derived CBD oil, and it only needed like 0.2 milliliters of this morning and night, and it was like 25 milligrams per milliliter CBD. So I took a 25-to-1 solution. So try that maybe. I hope that it would work for you. Cheers. Thanks. Bye, guys. Bye.
Yeah. Awesome. I learned a lot from this. Is why I love our fans. I was like, because when we did the CBD episode, I learned from doing the research that there's CBD derived from marijuana, and then there's CBD derived from hemp. And I was like, well, what's the difference? And then Gary's like, I got you. Fucking got you. So I love that I didn't realize that it could be prescribed. And I wonder, I guess my like follow-up question is that, like, these are like regular doctors, or these are the people that are already prescribing marijuana to like cancer patients and stuff? Like, I guess,
right, like the marijuana doctors, like the guys with
yeah. So I guess especially with like New York, like marijuana just became legalized, or it's on its path to being legalized. But I just like, it's so confusing with the state laws where it's legal in some places, it's not legal in some places. Some places are cool with CBD. Some places, like I think New York, you can't, or you couldn't ship CBD stuff to New York. It's so weird. So I think the barrier from what he was saying to me is, who am I even going to get this prescription? Like, I'm like it just gave me more questions, not in a bad way, Gary. It also gave like realistic expectations of, if you're taking CBD for anxiety, what is it helping with? Like, the fact that it helps with that cyclical thinking, that like you can't put this problem down, you can't get it out of your head. I suffer from that so much when I'm triggered. and to know that I could take something the same way that like when it gets really, really bad, I take Xanax. I would love to have that middle barrier where I take this kind of marijuana derived CBD as the first precautionary step before I go to Xanax.
I want to try. I was just sorry when you said cyclical thinking, I started thinking about how I cannot, like, Adam Todd Brown is an asshole because his Google was so gross and he purposefully made it grosser as we went on that I can't, like, it won't leave my head. And I know he did that on purpose, but I'm trying to control that. I wonder if CBD would take it away.
Can you watch like a horror movie, like something that's more awful?
I know I should, because like literally it was just one thing. I could handle all of it. There was one thing he said that I deleted out of the 5-minute one.
Yeah, no, I know what you're gonna say too.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say it. And if you get the full gory
if you get
details
our extended Googles, you can get grossed out by Adam Todd Brown's Google. But yeah, you know what's interesting? Like I can handle most gross stuff for the most part because my parents are vets and my mom literally used to cook dinner with like cat blood on her and stuff. But yeah, but like poop talk, like I just can't. Like I can handle a little bit of it.
It wasn't poop though.
No, but I'm saying where my level is.
Oh.
And then same thing with like, I don't know, do you ever watch like pimple popping videos?
No, fucking no. That's so disgusting. I'm so grossed out by it. I love popping my own blackheads.
Yeah, that's very satisfying. Sometimes like if it's like sometimes it's satisfying and sometimes it ruins my day and I actually don't understand.
You watch them?
No, sometimes I'm like a little ASMR kind of like I'm drawn to it and it's weirdly like satisfying. And then sometimes I'm like, ah! But it's like there's like this very fine line between satisfying and I'm not going to be able to eat for a couple of hours. And I don't actually always understand where that line is. We have gotten completely off the topic. Gary, you're magical. Thank you so much. We learned a lot from your you didn't really write in. You voicemailed in, but we like that. So if you want to leave us voicemails, you can do that at anchor.fm/2-non-4 doctors.
Yes.
And thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Googles.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a fascinating Google.
Well, then I'll just go first. So I had so many health Googles this week. It was hard to choose, but this one happened just a few hours ago, so it's the most in my mind.
It's fresh.
My flatmate came back from going to the dentist and she was like, oh, like my dentist said my gums are receding. And I thought that only happened to smokers, but she recommended I have to get an electric toothbrush. And I was like, what do you mean you have to? And she was like, yeah, because I was going to ask for this for my birthday, but I have to ask my dad for an electric toothbrush. And I was like, why? And she was like, because she said like she was brushing too hard. And so her gums were receding. And I was like, well, how is an electric toothbrush going to be more gentle? And she was like, well, this tells you when you're brushing too hard, it'll alert you. And I was like, this doesn't sound right. And I was like, I bet she gets a kickback from, because she was like Oral-B.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure she
gets a kickback.
She gets a kickback. And she was like, do you think? And I was like, 100%. I was like, let me see. Like, she was like, she recommended me this. Pulls out a piece of paper. It's not written down handwriting. And by the way, if you're a dentist, just write it in handwriting. It looks like more like from you. But she had an actual printed out, like all the different types of toothpaste listed and then little box to check. And so I was like, where do you think she even got this flyer? They've obviously giving her money for doing that. So I just Googled, do dentists get money for recommending products? And the first forum I found was yes. Yeah.
Doctors get kickbacks too from pharmaceuticals. John Oliver had like a whole thing a couple of years ago where like they would get taken out to dinner or they get gifts. You know what I mean? Like you would get a vacation to blah, blah, blah. And like, they would take them out to dinner and they would sell them on products and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, same thing with cat food for my parents and stuff.
Really?
Like, I remember this so clearly. This is when like TVs were boxes, you know, when they were big boxes.
Yeah.
It was in the 90s. And we had a little TV, probably the size of like a 13-inch computer or whatever. And it was in the kitchen. And my dad was so like, we weren't allowed to watch TV and da-da-da-da. So there being a TV in the kitchen, I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, where'd we get this? And it was from Science Diet, which is the the stuff they sell. And he said that they bought enough and that's how they got it. Like if you put in enough, whatever. But like, why are they giving you gifts for just purchasing what you're supposed to purchase? So it's just like a little like shady.
Yeah, I remember asking my psychiatrist for Ritalin. He was like, "What about Adderall? I think it would be better for you." And I was like, "I've taken Ritalin before, and it really like made me concentrate." And he was like, "Yeah, but I think Adderall would be really good for you." I was like, "Can you just put me on Ritalin?" But like,
Yeah.
and I just know that he was really trying to push Adderall for some reason. But yeah, but I didn't think I knew dentists like kind of they're like worse than mechanics. Like
Oh yeah.
I wanted to get my teeth cleaned in LA. That's all I wanted. It was covered by my insurance, and I should have been able to do it. And they were like, "We have to clean your gums, like a deep cleaning." And I was like, no, that's okay. I just want my teeth cleaned. They were like, "We can't actually work on you until you get this deep cleaning." The deep cleaning wasn't covered. So I had to pay like $500 for this deep cleaning
Fuck
on
you.
credit. Yeah, because they wouldn't do the cleaning.
Pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And also like, okay, let's say I don't know how much a cleaning is because I even talked to my mom recently. I was like, how much? Like I was like, I haven't got my teeth cleaned in like years.
I just
but
got
like,
mine clean. She didn't floss. I was like, "What? All right."
what do you? Okay, fucking don't know what you're doing. I come to you so you floss my teeth.
I can't wait to be so rich that someone just comes over to floss every
Yeah,
day.
every
That's
night
all they
they're
do.
like, oh, you had a spinach salad. This is crazy. But yeah, I haven't gotten it done in years, and I'm even more scared to go to the dentist because the last time I went was because I had pain and I ended up having 2 root canals. So now all I think is every time I go to the dentist, they're gonna find something. So I haven't gone in years. But okay, let's just say a teeth cleaning because I don't think my insurance covers it. Let's just say it's $200. The way it works is if my insurance does cover it and it's $200, they don't get $200. They get whatever my insurance negotiated that they think that's worth. So they might only get $130 because my insurance has decided market value of a teeth cleaning is 130, even though everybody else is charged 200. So that's why they want to try to sell you stuff that your insurance doesn't cover so that they can get the full 500 because they're not getting the full 200 of whatever the thing is. It's just garbage. You're like, well, these middlemen are just, that's the reason that everything we pay for is so astronomically more. And then if you don't have insurance, why it's even fucking more than that.
That's crazy. And plus,
anyway,
also making her feel bad for like not knowing how much pressure to put on her gums. Like it will tell you since you can't figure it out yourself. Like,
also, my gums have been receding for years, so I didn't even know that was like a smoker thing. I don't smoke. Also, nobody's ever told me that it's my toothbrush issue or whatever. I think they just said it's like certain people, like it's a thing that happens when you get older. Like that's what I was told, is that your gums.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. It's just you get older, your gums recede.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not things that can't push it forward and make it exacerbate the problem, but I was always told as you get older, your gums recede and that, gum health is important. But then I use like hippie toothpaste because my gums get inflamed from regular toothpaste.
Yeah. That was a weird stop.
So also, did you find out that this toothbrush is as magical as he was letting it on to be, or she was letting it on to be?
It's just an expensive toothbrush. Like it was like the Oral-B Pro or something. I guess there's no way to know if she bought the toothbrush. So it's not like she gets a kickback from individual sales. So she must have just gotten some money and promised to, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, that is interesting. Just by pushing it, they might get some kind of kickback. I have zero doubts they get a kickback. Zero doubts.
And plus, I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about like how their dentist recommended a $200 toothbrush. And he was like, what the fuck?
I'm sorry. A toothbrush is $2. It's $2. It is $2. It's insane to me that like there's industries that are solving non-problems with mechanics. Like it's just they're like, hey, this thing that isn't a problem, we're going to make it a problem and then we're going to charge you an astronomical amount of money to solve the thing that's not there. I just don't trust dentists. Oh my God, can I tell you the funniest story that is relatable?
Sure.
So my mom, Dr. Terry, the best, she's doing, we should bring her on for the vaccination clinics because she's been vaccinating people.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, she's been doing it every Friday for, I think, over a month now. And then and she says on the tier of people, so like the volunteers and everything, you know, it's like doctors, nurses, retired doctors, retired nurses, EMTs, da da da. Veterinarians, there's not even a thing. Like she writes it in, and like she was all excited. She's like, they're accepting veterinarians, and I was like, they must be desperate. Like I was like, so she was so excited. My dad did it, like whatever. And so, but the thing is like, so you have to wait, you know, for anybody that hasn't gotten vaccinated, you get vaccinated, and you have to sit and wait 15 minutes to make sure that nothing happens, because there's people that have anaphylactic shock and stuff like that. So you wait for 15 minutes, but those people that are waiting need to know stuff like Heimlich, or like they have to know some medical stuff. And they brought my dad up, and they thought my dad was like a doctor. And then he was like, they were explaining all the stuff he has to do just in case things go wrong. And he's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And she looked at him crazy. He's like, I'm a veterinarian. And she's like, you'll figure it out. Like, I was like, you'll figure it out. Anyway, fast forward, my parents went to this dentist. He's not related to us, but I guess I found out recently. I was like, why do we know this doctor? Like, because we've gone to him like our entire lives. She was like, oh, your dad's grandmother lived next to his grandmother, and that's why we've seen this dentist forever. Like it's like a long-term family thing. Anyway, she goes to make a joke. She's like literally like, oh, what have you been doing? She's like, oh, I'm retired, but I'm doing this vaccination clinic. She's like, it's so funny. She was just like, they even accept veterinarians and dentists, and we don't know what we're doing. And she's making this joke, and he did not laugh. Like he did not think it was funny that she was making this like we're worthless as medical professionals. And he did not enjoy it. And she was like, Liz, it was the longest, like I was like, oh my God, you bombed in front of our family dentist. She's like, I didn't know what to do. I thought it was funny, but he didn't find it funny because I think he thinks we have value. She was like, it was so awkward, and I don't think he likes us, but he just takes care of us because he's known us for so long. And I was like, that seems about right.
That's funny. Oh man.
My mom bombed hard at the dentist office, but all his like dental assistants, they're the funniest, nicest people, and that's what makes it.
They didn't make me stay for 15 minutes after. They just sort of like pushed me out. Fucking worst experience. It was fine. I'm fine. Okay. What did you Google?
Oh, my Google, somewhat related. What do COVID nails look like? So out of nowhere, you know how like news pops up into your phone? This phenomenon called COVID nails popped up, and I was like, what? First of all, I read the article, and the picture like wasn't good enough. So I ended up having to Google. That's where the full Google comes from. I had to Google, what does it actually look like? And I'm on the fence if I have it, excuse me. I'm on the fence if I have it or not, because I'm so convinced I had it in February before I came to Europe. I'm on the fence if I had it or not. I feel like I had it in February as like the worst cold I've ever had. But, you know, there's nothing to do. But also I'm kind of convinced I had it because I'm like, yes, I'm safe. I wash my hands. I wear a mask. I've done everything. But I'm just a little more out there than most people. And I was in the epicenter that I feel like I already had it protection, as opposed to I'm just so, you know, taking care. Like I take care of myself so well. Anyway, it's a medical term called Beus line, BEAU, Beus line.
Bow. BEAU is bow.
Bow line. And so basically, when you have a major physiological, sorry, I sometimes have to stare at words to remember how to say them. When you have a major physiological stress, like an illness, you can basically have a shifting of the nail cycle. And usually it happens to all the nails, not just like one nail. So it'll affect all your nails. Maybe your toenails, but usually your nails. And it's usually 2 to 3 months after this illness that it starts to show up. And it's a groove that runs horizontal across your nail plate and can look like ridges, grooves, or indentations. They basically say it's nothing to worry about. All it is a sign that your body went through something.
Huh.
So
that's nuts. So you have that?
So this is the thing. I have a slight groove. Like it's not. So there's two different, like I've seen they basically, when I Googled it, there was not tons, there's probably like 10 pictures. Some of them were like really like, it looked like the nail was fucked, but mine is just like kind of like a slight indentation. The other thing is, I don't know if you can see this. Do you see over the white part that it's like a little bit darker, like it's a darker hue?
A little bit.
It sounds crazy, but I noticed it a couple months ago and I was like, was my nails always like that? Like, I don't remember there being a dark hue in my nail bed. And it's been there for a couple of months. So that's what happened is I saw the nail thing and I was like, oh, maybe it's that weird dark hue that showed up. But what they're saying is it's the indentation. And I do have slight indentation. But then the other thing you have to remember is girls know this. You know, when you paint your nails too much and you let them grow out, it creates ridges in your nails.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, especially my toenails, because like, you know how the toenails don't chip when you paint them, so you leave them on longer. So then it grows with the nail polish and it can kind of make like almost like, you know how Black people that wear the do-rag to make the waves in their hair?
Yeah.
It almost looks like that on your nails because you paint your nails, it grows out, you take it off. You paint your nails, it grows out and so then you create these ridges, like these waves in your nails. So I'm very aware to like give my nails a rest so I don't have those ridges. But during quarantine, I got back into painting my nails like I was in middle school again. So that's the other thing is like, is this an actual ridge or is this because I was painting my nails a shit ton?
I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm gonna look up COVID. I don't like my nail, like my nails are perfect. Let's see, COVID nails. Am I gonna be grossed out if I look up
No,
COVID
it's
nails?
not gross. It's not, there's nothing gross about it. It's basically showing that some people have this, and basically and this is kind of interesting, it's just saying that when you go through an extreme illness, it's your body, it messes up with the nail growing cycle and it just creates these like ridges or grooves. It was like, that's why I looked up
all right.
they're not that bad.
It's fascinating.
It is fascinating though, because, you know, they keep coming out with these long-term effects of COVID. Clearly this is not a big deal at all, but it was basically them saying like, you could have had it and not known it because it clearly threw your body off. So I've always thought I had it in February. It would be crazy if I didn't, considering it was like in New York City in December and we were the epicenter. But as everybody knows from this podcast, very obsessed with my nails. And I found it interesting. And I learned something about how your nails grow.
That is, I had no idea. There's one more thing I'm going to just start looking for all the time. But thank you for sharing.
Thank you for your show and tell, Google. You ready for Let's Get Personal?
Yes.
I did not realize this when I wrote it, but it goes really into our topic. So I'm pretty proud of myself. Do you think people change?
What do you think?
Yes and no. I believe there are parts of you that are just, this is it. The same way, like, and I think any parent feels this way. And, you know, as someone that raised children, you're almost shocked that little kids have their personality so young.
Yeah.
Like Sammy and Greg, like I remember them as babies. I remember them as toddlers. I remember them, like when you think of yourself, like you don't remember who you were when you were 3, but like to watch somebody grow up is to see that they were this level of silly or this level of weird or this level of courteous. Like there's things that were so innate about my brothers that now that they're in their mid 20s, I'm like, that's always been there. Sam has always been a sweet boy. Like he's always been really funny and silly. And Greg has always been like, just like independent. And like the same way your genetics are like, you're going to have brown eyes and you're going to be this height. And, you know, there's things you can't change. I do think there's parts of you that are just, they're just in there. And I don't think that's developed. And I don't think that changes. That being said, and this goes back to the nature versus nurture thing. That being said, trauma can make you different. Different education can make you different. The people who raised you can make you different. Like, so I have this joke in my act where, you know, I say how I got through like what got me into therapy and why I do therapy. And I go, if you don't know anything about therapy, I'll explain my journey. In my mid 20s, I came to the conclusion that my parents didn't finish the job and I was going to have to pay out of pocket for someone to raise me. And like, there is a part of me that feels like I've been unparenting or reparenting myself the last 9 or so years. And that who I was 10 years ago is a shadow of the person I am now. But what I've learned is I still have the reactions that I had when I was younger, but they're quicker. I don't truly go through the motions of them. I know how to calm myself. I know how to self-soothe myself. So like in some ways I'm like, I change because I'm not having the guttural, I'm not having the side effects of the reaction that I used to, but I still have the reaction. And I don't know if I'm ever going to not have the reaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because there are like, I'm definitely different than I was 10 years ago. But there are, yeah, aspects of my personality. I remember being a child and being like that. And I think I had a Google once, like, can you change your personality? I don't remember what the answer was. I have to go back and listen. I know from interacting with others, there are some people I don't even feel like, even if I talk to them, would change their, like, how they view situations, right? Like if they perceive themselves to be, um, in every situation, the victim, and I need to stick up for myself. And I'm seeing this as like, you're just aggressive. And they're like, no, I'm a victim sticking up for myself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you can be like, well, this is how it is. Yeah, and then have them be like, oh, you're right. Maybe I'm like that. Maybe they.
But I feel like as somebody that always played the victim when they were younger, I still can get into that habit, but I'm most likely more to see the bigger picture of it. It's because to me, playing the victim is trauma. So I think you can fix trauma, and I think you can grow from trauma, and I think can be positivities to trauma making you grow as a person. I was talking about how I got into therapy with a friend who's having a hard time right now, and I remember being not okay when I was probably like 23, 24. And it was my boyfriend at the time and my friend Amanda that were like, you're not okay. You need to go to therapy. And I was anti-therapy. I was it hurt just to hear that. Like I couldn't reach it. But something in me was like, if my two favorite people are telling me I have to go, then maybe I should go. And what is that? Like, as somebody that was on such a bad path and was so not okay and couldn't hear any criticism and all these things that made me toxic to other people and to myself, where did this little blip of change and the openness to change come from? Because you describe this victim person and they never can kind of see it, but is it they have to reach an emotional bottom? Do they have to reach an alcoholic bottom? Do they have to have something even worse happen to them? Do they have to lose a parent? Like, what is the catalyst to change? Because I think people can change, but there needs to be some openness, something happen to be open to change, because you can't change somebody that doesn't want to change.
That's what I think I was getting at. It's like, I don't think there's that want. I think for me, and I think I've had bad habits in the past too. And if people point them out to me, I am open to going, oh, and looking at myself and saying, yeah, I do that. And that is pretty shit. And like, I've tried to change a lot about the way I react to people or whatever the problem is. I don't know. It's so hard for me to speak generally. Like I need to like speak in like actual situations, but I think I have changed a lot in the past 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both have. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a slower process than anybody really wants to admit. I would say my first initial like change took years, and then it just kind of built on itself and it's slowly happening. And then sometimes you feel like you go backwards and then you go forwards again. And you're always I always say I'm refurbished. You know what I mean? Just the same way you have a refurbished iPhone. You're like, it functions well, but it's been through some stuff and it's not going to be as great as brand new. But I do feel refurbished. I do feel like I fixed some things, and I do feel that even if because you know me, I go from 0 to anger very quickly. I don't know if that's going to change, but I don't set fires the way I used to set fires. I don't have my day ruined the way my day used to be ruined. I don't feel I need a pity party or all this attention the way I used to need attention. I get stressed. Like I had a stressful weekend this weekend, and I could tell and I could identify that I was stressed, and I allowed myself to eat ice cream, and I allowed myself to talk to friends, which I think is a right process. And I allowed myself to just be not okay, as opposed to, I think if my stressful weekend had happened years ago, it would have been, I would still just not be right in the head. And I would still be like blaming myself or blaming other people or just blowing up the situation bigger than it needs to be.
Do you think that people are born bad? Like just bad people?
I don't, because it's hard, because like you hear about some of these evil people and their family's great. You know what I mean? And you're like, that's not fair to blame them. But like, not everybody's childhood trauma is their parents' fault. Stuff happens at daycare, stuff happens at school, stuff happens when, somebody else is watching them. It's not always a parent's fault and under a parent's control that something, but I do think things that happen in your childhood does have lasting effects, especially if untreated. And then, like I said, I do think there's stuff inside you that's just there, and it can be possible, but is there like a murder gene?
I think my irritability comes from my dad. Like, it's just always there and it will always be there. I'm just going to be an irritable person.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. But I think it's also your irritability is no one else's problem. So how do you deal with your irritability so that when you're irritable, you don't, throw everybody off and like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not the same thing, but like, I get hangry. Like, I get really hangry. And
I've seen it.
Yeah. and I remember that being a problem with an ex like years ago. And now I have snacks, and now I can be like, hey, I'm getting hangry. I'm not feeling great. Like I can voice it so that people don't take how I'm reacting personally, or I pull away so I'm not even reacting at all. And then I was dating my ex, and I'm like, you're almost 40. Eat a snack. Like, at some point, you have to acknowledge that this is something that can be regulated. You have access to food. Fucking do something about it. And that's where I get the impatience is that your growth is your responsibility, and it can be done, but it takes work, and it takes acknowledgement, and it takes awareness. And it's really hard to be around somebody that you're like, your lack of growth affects me.
Yeah.
I do think people can change. Sponsor time.
Yeah.
Sponsor. Curious Elixirs is our sponsor again. As you know, they make booze-free beverages. It's so weird as somebody that doesn't drink to reintroduce like a night beverage. I'm a seltzer person now. It just kind of slowly happened. But I'm starting to like get into having like my little beverages. So I really got into the pomegranate bitter orange. It's the number one that Curious Elixirs has. I don't even know how to describe it as much as it's just like, it's just soothing. Just me. I'm just like, I have my dinner, I have a little snack, and then I'm like watching something in bed, and I have my little beverage. I think I like the habit of it, but I also think I just like it's like we talked about adaptogens. I don't even know how to say that word, but
adaptogens.
Adaptogens. I was like, is it the adaptogens? Like, I feel calm. I feel chill. And not that anybody's over when I'm having these, but there is something where I'm just like, I wish these were at bars. So like, cause it's always like, people always try to buy you drinks. And if you could just be like, oh, I got mine, got my drink. I don't need you to buy me. I got mine. Totally drunk right now, but I'm not. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like I'm starting like a new habit, and it's like exciting to me. But I would say number one with all my research, I would say number one, the pomegranate bitter orange is my favorite.
Amazing. They are booze-free, sophisticated, made with organic ingredients, no added sugars, and they are infused with adaptogens, which I love.
Yeah.
And if you go to curiouselixirs.com and use the promo code 2NONDRS, you get a free bottle with any purchase of $50 or more. And I'll spell that for you. It's CURIOUSELIXIRS.com. Promo code 2NONDRS.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thanks, Curious Elixirs. You ready for the topic?
Ready for the topic.
I am so proud of our Let's Get Personal, because it goes right into it. Our topic is emotional intelligence, also known as EQ. And I was like, what the hell does EQ mean? Because I know they do IQ for like smarty pants, but it says emotional quotient, QUOTIENT, quotient. Does that sound right?
QUOTI, quotient.
Quotient. I don't know what that word means. Just don't know what that means. I'll give the definition, and then we'll kind of go into it just in case people don't know what emotional intelligence is. It's the capacity to be aware of, control, express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. I started reading emotional intelligence books. My dad gave me one, I want to say like 8 years ago. Cause like the trajectory of my dad book giving was like self-help books that are about making money, self-help books about not having emotions, self-help books about controlling your emotions, and then eventually spiritual enlightenment that he just reads but doesn't.
Is your dad American Psycho?
Yeah. My dad, I've grown to really understand my dad, and through understanding my dad, understanding myself, which is that he had strong emotions. He didn't feel like he could express, so he's always been in a constant place of how do I control them. And what's interesting is I don't like the word control your emotions, but as much as regulate. Like I think regulate your emotions is a much healthier word than control, because it was very toxic in my and I think it can be misinterpreted, which is like, if you don't cry, you're controlling your emotions. I don't think that's right. I think if you process your emotions and go through the act of them, it's much healthier than suppressing or ignoring. But I've probably read like 3 books on emotional intelligence. In our self-help book dump, I think I listed some of them. But have you read anything on emotional intelligence specifically?
No. I'm a weak partner in this, but I do feel like I have emotional intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. But like, is that a word or phrase that you've come across over the last couple of years and there was a curiosity about it? Do you feel like it just went into the zeitgeist and you were like, yeah, I have that? Like, what's your relationship to that phrase, emotional intelligence?
I've heard it before, but not a lot. And it was not so much that I find like the concept annoying. And then I really think of artificial intelligence when I hear emotional intelligence, and that's different. So if somebody asks me if I'm smart, I'll be like, well, I think I'm like with emotional intelligence, I am, but with books, no.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I know about it. I don't really have much
That's
knowledge of it.
so it's interesting because if you think about, like, I've always thought of intelligence in a couple of different ways. You have IQ, which is this like measurable intelligence that is so wishy-washy because you take an IQ test, which very much factors in your education, and that's not fair. And there's so many studies out there that say if you don't measure that and you give everybody the same opportunities, it kind of doesn't fully matter. Yes, there's people that are just naturally more intelligent, but really it's about access to knowledge and being able to have access to it and have the right resources. Then there's emotional intelligence, which I absolutely think is taught, should be taught in schools, and is again something that can grow and get better, and has they really believe it's the most important thing in getting hired, having a good working relationship, having good friendship, having a good romantic relationship. Like it's literally in every aspect of your life the most important thing. And then of course we've talked about creative intelligence. So where I think we kind of excel is problem solving, creativity, adaptability, which all is also survival in this modern era of things are constantly changing because of the internet, because of resources, what have you. So are all of them important? IQ, EQ, and creative intelligence? Absolutely. But this belief that if you have IQ, you are completely set up for survival and success is, I think, extremely flawed. And more is coming out over the years that EQ, emotional intelligence, is actually probably the most important thing you can instill in people. And none of it is in school. None of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've learned more about it in books the last 10 years than I ever learned. And I think my emotional health and my ability to connect with people has been because I put more emphasis on that in my life. But
I've always thought that it was being good at reading people, but like I'm taking a quiz, and the first question is, are you good at, are you aware of your own feelings? I agree with that. I didn't realize that was like, it's just like being able to read yourself as well. So it's basically like therapy. Therapy helps you be emotionally intelligent.
in some capacities, absolutely. But like therapy makes you understand yourself. I think emotional intelligence helps you because like empathy is really like, okay, so the 5 components is self-awareness, self-regulation, which is what I was talking about earlier, which is okay, I'm really upset. How do I process these emotions? How do I take care of them? How do I not, make my emotions your problem? Then it's motivation, empathy, and social skills. Signs of a high EQ: can handle criticism without denial, blame, excuses, or anxiety. That last one seems a little aggressive.
Take some time. Yeah.
Yeah, no anxiety. I don't. Open-minded, good listener, they don't sugarcoat the truth. That seems a little wishy-washy. And then they apologize when they're wrong. I apologize when I'm not wrong. So I feel like, is that like extra? Like, do I have extra EQ? But like, I find some of these things on the list and some of these signs of having like a high EQ, like I can go through the motions of when I didn't have this, like could not handle criticism in any capacity. I would often, like, if you criticized me, I would just sink into a pity party, blame myself, beat myself up. If that wasn't the process, I would blame, even if I didn't go like, you don't fucking, in my head, I'm like, you don't fucking know, like, could not handle. And like criticism that wasn't even a big deal, I couldn't handle. Anything that was pointed in my direction as I wasn't perfect or I wasn't appreciated, I fell apart, just fell apart. So even just the ability to take criticism, regulate my emotions during criticism, not take them on personally, not blame others, is, I think, honestly, like 70% of it.
I've been trying to get better at not taking everything like being defensive at like whatever Johnny says to me, and I'm just, apparently I get very defensive, and he's like, I've said this before, he's like, I feel like I'm tossing you a ball and you're like going like that. You know, I don't know anyone who's really good at that. I feel like that's something that like you're made aware of in therapy and given the tools to handle, but I don't know anyone who just takes everything on board like, I see what you're saying. Okay. Like, you know what I
It
mean?
also depends where you're getting it from. Like, if your parents are criticizing you, your partner's criticizing you, a friend's criticizing you, that holds way more weight than some dude on the street that you're never going to see again criticizing you, or
Yeah.
like a YouTube comment, or, you know, you're like a person on staff that you don't even care about. Like, it also is like, where's the criticism coming from? Also, is this a pain point for you? If somebody's criticizing your art, something that you care about and you work your ass off, it's very different if somebody criticizes how you're dressed and you're like, dude, I'm literally doing laundry. Like, I'm clearly not, I don't give a fuck that you don't like the way I'm dressed. I'm in sweats. Like, so it's like
That would
context.
still break my heart.
I look hot in sweats, but like context and relationships absolutely matter, and who's distributing the criticism and what have you. But like, yes, I've learned a lot of this in therapy. I couldn't even identify my emotions, let alone regulate my emotions, let alone process my emotions. So all of that's taken years. And then through just being able to do that one part, and even having the awareness that that is something I'm not good at, and that's something that is causing pain for myself and the people around me, and making it so people can't be close to me. Because if you can't, and we're not saying mean criticism, but if somebody can't correct you, like, let's say every time you called me, and how this is going to make you laugh, I talked over you and I didn't let you speak. What? That's so, what's this example
I have
coming
no
from,
idea
Liz?
what that's like.
And you said, hey, you know, you never let me speak, and, you know, it makes me feel like you don't value what I'm saying. And my thought is, well, like, you should speak up more, or that's not my problem, or you know, whatever. You're never going to approach me again to say when your feelings are hurt or where you feel and it's going to make us further apart. You know what I mean? As opposed to, if you feel open enough to say when I've hurt you, whether intentionally and unintentionally, and I hear you and I make an effort, then the next time there's a problem, again, intentional, unintentional, you can say something and you're not scared. And then the more repeated that process happens, and the more that it is resolved and isn't a scary process, the more that we can speak without fear, and the closer that we can become. And I would like to think that's our friendship, and we do the best we can, and, you know, what have you. And now we kind of do it in a funny way where you're like, Liz, shut up. And I'm like, correct. You are correct.
I'm an asshole in your reenactment.
No, but like, you know, if the first time you said something I didn't like doing, you said it in a shitty way, I don't know if I would have been open to taking it. Correct?
Yeah.
So I flat out remember Nitika, who was one of our guests on season 1. She's probably like my girliest friend. I think she was the first person, maybe the second person, that was in therapy. She really helped me along that journey and stuff. And I remember very early into our friendship, I was my dad. She called me. She was upset about something, and I gave her advice. And after maybe like the third time I did that, she was like, hey, can I say something? And I was like, sure. She goes, when I call, I don't want advice. I just want you to listen. And I'm not saying your advice isn't good, but that's not what I want. So
I have 2 things to say to that.
Yeah.
A, do you remember White Men Can't Jump?
I'm sure
Like
I saw it when I was a
Rosie
kid.
Perez and Woody Harrelson, they're in bed. She's like, when I say I want water, I don't want you to go up and get me water. I want you to know what it feels like to want water too. Or I'm thirsty or something like that.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
second thing is, doesn't she have the same therapist as you?
Yeah, now, but at the time,
Oh, not at the time.
oh no, no, not at
It's
the
like,
time at all.
this woman is
Yeah,
making
yeah, yeah, yeah.
communication better across Brooklyn.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like I didn't even realize that's what I wanted. So I'm out doing stuff like so like now I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want most of the time. Like sometimes yeah, advice and I'll even be like, Maria, what do I do? But most of the time like and now I can say that, hey, I had a bad day, can I vent? And you'll be like, yeah. And I'll be like, I'm just going to yell at you for 10 minutes. And you're like, I got you. But like, it was even fascinating that through her telling me that, yes, I became a better friend, but even more so, I learned something about myself. I hate when my dad gives me advice. I hate when people give me advice. Most of the time, I'm just upset and I want to just be like, just release it.
Yeah.
But like, that's where that ability to be open and communicate with somebody by not being defensive, by not taking that personally, by learning a lesson. I learned something about my friend and became closer, but then I also learned something about how to soothe and help myself. It was one of the most important life lessons I made to being a good friend and understanding myself.
You're the only friend I feel comfortable talking to.
Oh no, I don't want that. I want more
That's
friends
not,
that you're comfortable
that's
with.
not true. But you know, like I know that if I have an issue with you, I can talk to you about it and you'll receive it openly and without getting defensive and making me feel bad. Not like, you know, I just know that I can talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't know that with a lot of people.
Yeah, and it takes time to build that trust. I think that everything from like building this emotional intelligence, understanding my feelings, being able to communicate my feelings, building strong bonds took forever. Also, we were friends in our early 20s when I had none of these skills and I was a fucking mess. I'm always shocked with my friends from high school and college and right after college, really anybody I've met before I was 28, that they were able to I was able to be close with them and I was able to go through this process with them because I wasn't reachable. I didn't understand my emotions. I was just erratic in my feelings and how I reacted to stuff. So I give a lot of credit to my friends that were there for me when I wasn't my best, but even the ones that I've been able to grow with. Like I'm so grateful that I've been able to grow with so many of the people in my life. But I do think if I had not grown, I would have lost a lot of you guys because it becomes exhausting and it does push people away. And I think it really is one of the most important skills. And it's just not taught at all.
Yeah, I would love it if they taught that in school.
Some interesting facts. You know, I love
Okay.
my facts. It was introduced in the 90s. I always just think everything started in the 60s. I don't know why, but this was introduced in the 90s by Peter Salovey. I don't know how to say his name.
When you picture the 90s, you picture like fuck ups with that, like acid wash jeans and tie-dye t-shirts
Yeah,
and stuff.
this guy,
You don't
yeah,
picture anybody doing anything of value in the 90s.
I just think everything in the 90s was wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, I don't know, maybe because that's where I grew up. You know what I mean? I'm just like, didn't process good people. They basically, a lot of the issues with emotional intelligence is that it can't be measured. But I want to be like, people measure IQ and they're wrong. And also IQ doesn't correlate into success, both in a social way or in a financial way. So fuck off that you can't accurately measure it. It's I hate that everything has to be measured to be valued. You know, that's some of the issues with it. They haven't found a thing that measures it well. Like we said, I absolutely think it should be taught in schools. I believe fully that it can be taught. It's a form of parenting, but it can be a form of adult parenting, like it's or therapy or reparenting or whatever. Like when it happens isn't fully important, but just like learning a language, just like learning math, just like anything, clearly the younger you learn it, the healthier you can be, to the point where if somebody has a bad home life, they don't have a great upbringing, if it's taught in schools, you now have probably less school shootings. You have less kids doing outbursts, maybe less kids doing drugs, kids that have stronger relationships, kids that have a support system, even if they don't have it at home. It's just upsetting that this could be life changing for especially Americans, our community, where we have so many kids. And this probably goes back to male depression and even just, you know, regular depression, this inability to communicate and understand our feelings. And if it was even taught on a basic level, the same way that we teach social studies, it could be earth shattering. in our communities, and we don't do anything on it.
Well, we need somebody like with emotional intelligence to teach it. Where you can find that, really.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to hear from people. I would love to hear about where you feel like you learned emotional intelligence, where you feel like it's taught maybe in your community.
Just write to us at
Yeah.
two non DR. No, it's actually doctors, full word doctors this time. 2 non full word doctors at gmail.com. And
I love
we'll
your
see you next
enthusiasm.
week. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.